How's it going today? It's Mason Hayton with Mason Modern and Gallery M, and I have Myrna Hayton with Gallery M as well. How are you?
Good.
Good. So today we're talking about kind of the future of what the art market and real estate markets are going to shape into when COVID finally settles down, how that's going to change, as well as why people are changing the way they are now with the COVID environment. What you're seeing from an art standpoint, what I'm seeing from a real estate standpoint, as well as art. And I'll have a few images that we'll discuss, as well as some of the facts that are going on in the local market. Tonight's discussion on November 19th is Collecting in the Arts Beyond COVID. And you hopefully see the blue screen at this time, right?
I do.
Great. So as I go through this, if there's any questions, please type it below in the chat box or ask if you're unmuted. And anything that we have that we want to share, just let's try obviously keeping it interesting and of point. So there are two markets that Gallery M is involved in, specifically the art market, and through Mason Modern Keller Williams, there's the real estate market. And we offer these services to our clients, which include specifically what, Myrna?
It includes fine art, appraising, and real estate.
And how long have you been doing Gallery M?
Gallery M has just started its 25th year. And from the very first day that we opened, November 1st of 1996, we were online. So we have been selling and working with clients both in person and online for now starting 25 years.
So the beyond COVID for you is really the normal.
It is absolutely normal.
I see. And what we're seeing people experience is drastic changes to lifestyle, concern about when we're going to be able to do things normal again. Do you believe that there will be a new normal, or will we be reverting back to what we've already previously experienced prior to March?
It will definitely be a new normal. It will involve digital play in many different ways, whether we're on desktops or we're moving around with our handheld devices. It will be a new normal.
So how does that play out? You had a gallery physically, and you've done the online thing. How's the mix, in your opinion, going to work out if we all, 335 million Americans plus others around the world, are now reliant on this central platform called the internet? How's that going to shape out in your mind for the art world?
Well, it allows me to be in contact with so many more people, and I don't necessarily have to do a Zoom call with them, but just from my history and experience in the art world, I can express the beauty of the art that we're looking at.
Okay. Well, in this presentation here today, I believe we've prepared some examples of what collecting in the arts looks like today, and what we anticipate certain trends to materialize, as well as things that have been popular, and why those will or will not remain so. And so as we click through here, the election is over, thankfully. The virus is yet to be contained. How will our interactions change values for things and places? So I ask that to you as an expert in things and places and in valuing those things and places. So from an
I'm
art standpoint, how do you value the art?
well. First of all, let's talk about what people might want to put in their environments. And what I'm finding is that it's topics that are close to them, whether it's something, it's word art, which people are very much responding to. It allows them to interpret it their way, or whether it's from history, that they want to have history surrounding them, of history maybe last year or 10 or 20, or even history that when they were young that became important and are bringing back different times today. So that's the type of art that people are responding to right now.
So the value of these works of art, how do you think it's going to change? Are they going to become more valuable, the same, or less valuable? Like real estate, we're seeing the virus impact commercial real estate differently than we are residential. And then within residential, we're seeing certain segments boom and other segments drop back. So there's buying opportunities and selling opportunities always as markets work. In our current COVID environment, we're seeing a shift in collecting and buying habits of real estate. Would you say that valuing these things is going to be different because of this virus?
Oh, it will have to be different, but to value a work now instead of letting time interpret the value, that's different than real estate, because real estate is reacting so quickly to the
And why
virus.
is art not? You sell the art online,
Correct.
so
Now,
it's sold for a price.
it is sold for a price, but what you're asking me is, will it hold its value and increase, or will the value decrease? And
So
it's
what are the
too
factors
early.
that, why is that too early to know? Because people are buying real estate because they need more space, because they
Right.
have to do things all in a certain amount of space with their family members. And so if it's too small, they're doing things like renovation. We're seeing that in the numbers right now. And let me just get that to come back up. For example, here's an aerial view of one Vanderbilt building at night by Howard Schatz. He took this photograph in 2019 and made it recently available. New York's city skyline is changed, and permanently the culture of New York is changed. So what values are we seeing that are shifting for people that were in the city and now going to the suburbs, for example?
Well, I had a client look at this particular photograph yesterday, and it brought back his youth, and he was very taken by it because he's not living in New York City now. So this has great value for him.
So
Um,
that goes to, again, the reason someone's going to collect an object or even design their home according to new requirements. They're going to
exactly.
incorporate these memories. And so those memories are, for example, a beautiful scene of the city skyline that they're no longer near.
Right. I mean, just look at the Chrysler building. That always has had importance in design and architecture, and people have tried to emulate that in their taste level. The beauty of the shape of that building is forever. It won't change.
Right.
And so we see people wanting to emulate it, as I said.
Understood. So right now, vacations over the past 8 months or so have been on hold until we come up with a viable vaccine and way to get the vaccine to residents all around the world. So home improvements have actually been on the upside. In the arts, we have or have not seen an increase in interest in sales because of it.
Absolutely, and an increase because people, because of COVID, have been forced into an environment that they normally didn't see until the weekend or in the evenings. Now they're almost 24/7 in that environment. And so now they want to bring uh, fine art that makes them feel comfortable and gives them an uplifting feeling about being where they are. So we're seeing an uptake, absolutely.
So obviously, Cherry Creek is one of Denver's premier luxury neighborhoods. It's known for world-class housing and shopping and quick access to the city, downtown, as well as even to the amenities like the airport and the parks nearby, Washington Park, the trails that lead all the way up to the foothills and all the way out to the reservoirs. So the malls specifically nationally have been drastically impacted. Do you see a change in the way that e-commerce is going to allow stores to work in the future?
It may be that the stores become showrooms totally, and people are buying online only, or it may be a mix. People will want to go out. They will want to be with other people. They will want to see other environments, but they're becoming very comfortable online and buying everything online.
So your experience doing online sales for over 24 years has given you the upside or downside of not working with people?
Well, it's given me the upside to be able to work with a lot more people. And as I said earlier, whether I see them or not, I can understand their personalities from our conversations and by what they collect.
Yeah. So here's a scene of the beautiful mountains of Colorado from one of the Cherry Creek high rises that have been, various units are available throughout the year uh, for sale. And we're seeing in this also a beautiful Clifford Still at the Clifford Still Museum uh, pre-COVID, and the interior of a luxury kitchen with one of our clients' commission works of Alex Cow with Maryland versus uh, Hefner. And I mention these because today in Colorado, we just got a warning that there's an increase in the rate of COVID. And as a result, the Clifford Still Museum will be closed for a month to respect the public order. But we have heard nationally the death of places like New York City. And Jerry Seinfeld recently teamed up with a developer to argue the fact that New York is never going to die. And it's just New York will not die, where others, and one of the reasons this became a debate, James Altucher wrote an article that became very widespread, and he was highly critiqued, saying New York is dead. The politics have changed the way that cities are working, and the virus has changed the way cities are working. Is that also true for how people will collect objects, in your opinion?
Well, they're right now, they want objects around them that make them feel good, that make them feel comfortable in their space. I believe that will continue after COVID has relaxed
Yeah.
and we develop a new normal. And I believe all the great cities will come back. It just will take time.
So from a real estate standpoint, I do believe that too. I believe the city is maybe temporarily buying opportunity if you can have a longer term perspective. Of course, the type of city that you're in and where that city is matters. In Cherry Creek, we are part of the larger Denver metropolitan area, but we're 4 miles or so away from downtown. So the urban feel of the city is not what you feel in Cherry Creek because we're very much at the luxury level. Um, we've also seen, for example, people that have recently sold their homes looking to acquire a new home. And once they did that, they went and things that they always wanted, they started to add. We experienced, for example, the client that sold their home in the suburbs and moved to a brand new multi-level building and called us for a painting that they had seen in the gallery physically at a show almost 20 years ago. They just made that purchase. At the beginning of the pandemic, we had a beautiful Albert Watson sell to a client online. First time ever, and that client successfully acquired other works too, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
So, from a real estate standpoint, in March and April, there were luxury agents around the world that got onto a Zoom call as well to discuss what they were seeing. And they were seeing the beginnings of what's already panned out as urban flight, where they've left the main city and gone to the suburbs, or they've gone to their second homes. So that is the stimulus for constant addition of new works. And to your point earlier, the way that someone collects is from a memory standpoint, or what that artwork makes them feel. So Denver currently has, unfortunately, the timing's a little off, but the Denver Art Museum has their Frida show, which is a Frida, Diego Rivera, and other influential Mexican artists in the show. You've seen that, correct?
I've seen it online. I have not gone personally to see it. It's the great Mexican modernists,
Okay.
of which Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera are part of.
So, and I have seen the Frida exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum. I know the difference here is the extent of the original works by Frida versus works that are mixed in with the other Mexican artists. But the theme of what the museum was looking to do was kind of show the expressionism of the art and the movements behind those artists, I should say. So Frida and Diego historically were very socialist in their thought process. And of course, the Rockefeller building with Diego Rivera's monumental painting to the labor of the world being painted and torn down. Those became instrumental points in time. COVID is doing that again. Do we know where those next artists are going to be?
Well, we're seeing artists express their feeling about COVID now. Now, whether this art that is being brought out today, which is very expressive, um, stays, or is just a moment in time, as we hope COVID is.
Uh-huh. So creativity versus the formality of the art, techniques, new methods versus tradition. What do you think from your experience will play out in the works that become significant of this period in time?
Again, it's how much you want to remember this period. If you want to collect exactly works that are being created today, responding to the dynamics of COVID, whether you feel it's harsh, and it definitely is harsh, and it is restricting our movements from inside to outside, from enjoying restaurants inside to having to do it outside. So it will depend on how quickly we can get out of this scenario, whether people want to keep collecting works that are reminiscent of this time period.
So I stopped at this image because this is the rebirth of Venus. of course, mythology playing out in a contemporary photograph happens to be by David LaChapelle, and it's a stunning interpretation by that artist of the past. So with COVID, we've seen, and actually prior to COVID, there were hints in the artwork of major artists in major collections of masks and how people in Asia were wearing masks all the time. There's the nurse with the mask, which has become a very significant image. We'll see here Ben Franklin with a mask, which was in Miami during Art Basel during 2015. That was done by that work was actually done by Mr. Brainwash. But so street art was already kind of yielding some of this, and the younger artists were already kind of foretelling what we may start experiencing. And ironically, we are now all wearing the mask. And so you're seeing artists in their studios painting and creating things relevant to the mask. So we'll know that work specifically because of this period of time. Just in a way, in my experience of working in the arts and in real estate, that we saw the Great Dust Bowl and the migrant families, migrant workers and Migrant Mother by Dorothea Lange coming out. The techniques then that were used to convey that became significant because of how they spoke to the country or to the person witnessing that work of art, and that added its value. And then from a museum collection, it became an important thing to talk about time. And so what I'm going through here is how some of the contemporary movements now are reflecting. This image by Tyler Shields is a fun work, but it's a photograph, and he does his in a traditional technique. You can see some of his other comments on pop art with Chanel and the brands, and how do we discover those brands if retail physically is gone? So these are some of the questions that we'll start uncovering through the arts and in moving forward, I believe. Damien Hirst, world known because of how he changed how art was sold through galleries and then through auction and now worldwide. His reference to love and the butterfly, the existence of life and death is what the butterfly symbolizes, as well as rebirth and regeneration. And of course, this is another Damien Hirst called Mantra, gorgeous work. Tyler Shields and his play on the bunny, and here you can see the size of some of his works. So you're seeing Tyler inspect and see his proofing process, being very collaborative and involved in every aspect of his mediums.
And may I just interject, technique-wise for Tyler, many of his works, he uses film as opposed to digital only.
Understood. So this is Batwoman, which is again a hand-printed photograph versus a digitally printed. And Howard Schatz Vanderbilt building that he took from, I believe, actually the Empire State Building. Another Howard Schatz works by Regina Sara, which symbolizes for the gallery, one of our first artists that we ever selected for the gallery, and collectors have added those to their own collection, like Cafe Negro, and gave their a fresh vibe. Howard's immense reach with athletes and journalists and Nobel winning scientists and writers This happens to be David Brooks of public radio fame and
the New York Times.
New York Times, and of course, Vagina Monologue playwright here, Eve, and Albert Watson's work of Christy Turlington. Mr. Brainwash's Ben Franklin in 2015, kind of a precursor to today. And of course, how we learn and experience sculpture without seeing it in person. That's something that tangible aspect of art you can't do, but you do get to see the ethereal nature of it when you are looking at it online. So how we learn about this type of work in the future can be as simple as what we're doing right now to the physical presence, which is what we want to have happen in our homes. This is beautiful original work by Peter Tunney. It is what it is, kind of sums up our situation in life with COVID. And for a quick understanding of Denver's real estate, Colorado has 4 or 5 cities in the top 10 best places to live in America, according to US News and World Report. They included Boulder, Denver is number 2, Austin, Texas, Colorado Springs, and Fort Collins. 1 through 5, 4 of the 5 were the top places to live in the 2020 city rankings. And in Cherry Creek North, currently, the submarket above $1 million, there are 43 homes as of today available to choose from. There have been 101 sold over the past 180 days, with an average selling price of 1.8 million, which is for a home just under 3,000 square feet. It took about 40 days to sell, and in our zip code, there are currently available 106 properties, which has an average day on market for the total zip code of 86. So you're seeing a faster sell-through rate at the higher end right now than you are below $1 million. But the average, because of this neighborhood zip code, is just at about $1 million. Cherry Creek North is, of course, the home to Gallery M and Mason Modern. We work throughout the city as well as internationally and nationally, and look forward to working with clients wherever you are, even as far as downtown Denver to Zurich, Switzerland. And for additional details, please visit gallerym.com or masonmodern.com. And Myrna, thank you for being here today to discuss your perspective. And for those that would like more information, visit us online.